My name is Russ Jaffe. I'm a physician, internist, clinical pathologist, and biochemist. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist, fellow of the National Academy for Clinical Biochemistry, overseas fellow of the Royal Society of Medicine, fellow of the American Society for Clinical Pathology, the American College of Nutrition, a scientific fellow of the American College of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology, and a fellow of the American Medical Laboratory Immunologists. I'm also a fellow at the Health Studies Collegium Foundation, and I am director and founder of both PERQUE Integrative Health and ELISA Act Biotechnologies. We looked in part 1, which has been archived for your review, at adrenal distress and metabolic syndrome and the connections between chronic stress, the distress, the part that wears us down, not so much the external pressure as the internal adaptation, and insulin resistance, what we think of as prediabetes and metabolic syndrome, and they do go together. So please take a moment to review. You can look at the archive at www.perque.com/podcasts.asp, and your feedback on these archived webinars helps us to craft future ones that are even more relevant to your needs. Well, here we see some of the connection between metabolic syndrome and adrenal distress. On the left, we see some of the underlying, if you will, root causes of metabolic syndrome. These underlying root causes are the metabolic acidosis, the antioxidant deficit, oxidative stress, the repair deficit leading to inflammation, the metabolic acidosis due to mineral deficits, and these have as their products abnormalities in blood pressure, especially essential hypertension, weight management issues and obesity, atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, diabetes risk, and dyslipidemia, particularly high blood triglycerides with or without elevated blood cholesterol. And on the adrenal distress side, we find that when people are in balance, there's a healthy side to stress, what Selye called eustress, and this is the balance of DHEA and cortisol. They go up together, they come down together. You use cortisol in short bursts, and in between there's resolve. Too many of us, however, because of the distress of high-tech living and other deficits in our adaptation, we too often reach for cortisol, and eventually when the cortisol goes up and the DHEA comes down, and still further on, both may be deficient, and that's what we call the fatigability or high fatigue states of hormone distress, an imbalance between cortisol and DHEA, initially with high cortisol and low DHEA, and then eventually both being deficient in the further exhaustion phase. We've helped rethink the notion of insulin resistance and emphasize the importance of epigenetics. 92% of our health and well-being is determined by our daily habits of living, the choices that we make each day. 8% is due to genetic disposition. Fortunately, though, 92% is epigenetic or environmental and choiceful. So we can choose a sedentary, inactive lifestyle that accelerates loss of function and aging. It accelerates inactivity-associated fat retention and obesity, and all of this contributes to insulin resistance, a difficulty of taking sugar up, either because the receptor is resistant to the insulin or the insulin itself has antibodies against it that prevent it from properly connecting with the glucose transporter receptor. And the result of insulin resistance includes type 2 diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia, atherosclerosis, syndromes like NASH and PCOS, and the list goes on. Another area that we have rethought, and we particularly commend to your consideration, is that inflammation is really repair deficit. Inflammation is no longer a mystery to be fought and suppressed, a fire to be staunched, but rather it is the accumulated repair deficits that the body tries to restore and repair, and the consequences of this can be myriad in the body because inflammation or repair deficit inflammation and repair deficit has been linked, if we look in the upper right, to cardiovascular diseases, and then as we come around clockwise to Alzheimer's senility, some are now calling that diabetes of the brain, type 2 or acquired diabetes, arthritis and other autoimmune diseases as we continue around neurodegenerative diseases, pulmonary diseases, and cancer. So inflammation is at the core of the chronic disabilities, particularly the autoimmune, cardiovascular, and cancer-related problems that so dominate many people's lives. Our clinical goal is to rethink inflammation as repair deficit and as the primary cause for diabetes, metabolic syndrome, its precursor prediabetes, and adrenal distress. And with the help of physiology first, we're able to offer you approaches that restore the individual, the host homeostasis, restore the ability of the individual to rebalance themselves using predictive tests that are applied functionally, yet personally and individually, referencing healthy values that we've helped define and that I'll be sharing with you in this webinar. So the Alkaline Whey summarizes all of this. The Alkaline Whey in practice helps restore, repair, and defend the body. The Alkaline Whey is a simple way of bringing together all the approaches that bring forward and evoke the human healing responses, that correct the deficits and essentials, that enhance getting rid of the toxins so that we can restore, repair, and defend our body. Now, what are the Alkaline Whey markers of health and risk, and how do we approach this? Well, as I've indicated, there are 5 primary control systems, and whether you are in the healthy range for these or the unhealthy range determines greatly your risk. Inflammation, we've just been talking about, it is repair deficit, and the marker is HSCRP, high sensitivity C-reactive protein, HSCRP, and it should be less than 0.5 for the healthy goal. The next control system is about detoxification and methylation, the communication system, the system responsible for moving things around in the body, and especially for getting toxic metabolites out, and a homocysteine value of less than 6 is the goal here. The third component is oxidation and antioxidant status, because when we have enough of the protective antioxidants, we do not rust on the inside, we do not oxidize and damage the delicate components of our body. And the test marker here is oxidized HDL and LDL, available from Shield Labs, and 8-oxoguanine, available from Metametrics. And the goal is to have non-detectable ND, enough antioxidant protection that oxidized HDL and LDL do not form, and 8-oxoguanine, a degradation product of a nucleotide base, doesn't form in the nucleus. The fourth aspect is stress hormone balance, where you want the free cortisol and free DHEA to stay in balance, and we recommend measuring the free cortisol and free DHEA either in saliva or in plasma at 4 different time points, say on rising about 8 a.m., midday, say noon, about 4 p.m., and then either 8 p.m. or before bed. And at those 4 time points, we can chart the rhythm of the stress hormones, cortisol, and DHEA through the day. And the fifth component is the acid-alkaline metabolic status. This is measurable by first morning urine pH. Healthy range is 6.5 to 7.5, and we want to give enough minerals, say through PERQUE Mag Plus Guard and PERQUE Choline Citrate, PERQUE Bone Guard, PERQUE Life Guard, PERQUE Detoxin Guard. We want to give enough minerals to keep the first morning urine pH in the healthy 6.5 to 7.5 range. This approach, the Alkaline Whey, restores, repairs, and defends the body using these 5 marker systems, with your now knowing the goal value for each of those 5 primary or control systems. Let's look at how important this is. Relative risk of these physiology first key markers, in this case high sensitivity CRP, high sensitivity C-reactive protein, and you see the data from Ridker and colleagues about the distribution of CRP levels by number of metabolic syndrome components. You see the level of C-reactive protein on the left, or the y-axis, and the number of aspects of metabolic syndrome across the bottom or the x-axis. And depending on which way you want to look at it, let's look at metabolic syndrome. If you have no components of metabolic syndrome, your C-reactive protein is likely to be low with a mean of 0.68, and for the healthiest value, not just the statistical ranges, but for the healthiest value, it would be less than 0.5. If you look at the other side, say 4 or 5 degrees of metabolic syndrome, now your mean C-reactive protein is higher, 3.88 in the case of people with 4 components of metabolic syndrome and 5.75 for people with all 5 aspects of metabolic syndrome, and notice that the range is now wider. So C-reactive protein goes up when there's a repair deficit. The repair deficit is known as inflammation, and the healthy C-reactive protein HSCRP level is less than 0.5, indicating minimum risk in regard to inflammation and repair. Let's look at some of these other risk markers. Methylation and detoxification on the left, with a healthy goal of having a homocysteine of less than 6. And when the homocysteine is less than 6, looking from the top, you have less cardiovascular disease, you have less progression of aging, less gender-associated senescence, less renal failure, you have better vitamin status, you have less cancer risk. It is largely a lifestyle issue. It is related to thyroid and thyroiditis. There is a genetic component. Sex hormones are important, as are the presence or absence of diabetes and medications. But the healthy homocysteine is now known to be less than 6, and this indicates a healthy family of the B-complex methylation factors that are involved. And on the right, we see the antioxidant status as measured by oxidized HDL, LDL. This is for heart and vascular health, but for overall health as well. And the goal is to have an undetectable oxidized HDL, LDL, and also an undetectable 8-oxoguanine, indicating adequate, comprehensive antioxidant sufficiency. These relative risk physiology first primary markers do include the adrenal stress hormones and their balance. Here we would look at the plasma or the saliva free DHEA and free cortisol. The active hormones are the free ones, not the bound total or sulfated compounds. We want to look at the free DHEA and cortisol at 4 different time points through the day, either in the plasma or in the saliva. And then the labs that do these analyses can interpret whether you're inside or outside the range. And we'll look shortly at a study we've done on people with adrenal issues and the benefits that come from using PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard. The last of the relative risk physiology first markers is the acid-alkaline metabolic status. Do you have enough buffering minerals, or are the metabolic acids produced through the day more than your cells need, indicating a net acid excess? First morning urine pH 6.5 to 7.5 is the range, and we recommend using the high contrast pH 5.5 to 8.0 microfine paper as the indicator. This allows you to more sensitively know where between 5.5 and 8.0 the individual is for that morning's urine. We recommend keeping a daily log and noticing that the days when people are more alkaline, they're less symptomatic and function better. The days when they're more acidic are the days when they're more symptomatic and function less well. Well, this brings us to natural adrenal support. PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard is trophorestorative. As with all PERQUE products, it works with the body. Trophorestorative meaning that it supports the physiologic function. It provides relief from high-tech living, the stresses that overwork and overwhelm adrenal glands too often. They repair. PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard is designed to repair the HPA, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, naturally. A marker of this is better restorative sleep, more in the day and night for people, and the ability to rebuild immunity around tolerance. And this patent-pending proprietary formula can be taken as 2 soft gels 1 to 4 times a day as needed. very often more in the morning and less in the afternoon, depending on the guidance of the health professional. PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard includes, in just 2 soft gels, a full 300 milligrams of rosivins and more than 1% salaridoside. This is from rhododendron extract by supercritical fluid, and then a combination of magnolia and philodendron, 500 milligrams, in perilla oil and medium-chain triglycerides. That provides enhanced uptake and alkalinizing effects, phosphatidylcholine to facilitate the dispersion and the uptake, and as a full disclosure company, there is some beeswax, kosher gelatin, glycerin, vegetable glycerin, water, and turmeric that provides the yellow protective color in the beautiful soft gel. All of this is contained in PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard, and 2 soft gels delivers this full formulation. Successful outcome results using PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard have been studied in a 6-week before and after study, looking at cortisol and DHEA levels and their rhythm, using a non-invasive saliva measure of free equal to blood plasma hormones level. These were measured on rising, late morning, late afternoon, and before bed. And we look at pre and post evaluations here. If you look at the cohort, if you look at the group, and here what we see is the before in dark blue diamonds and the after in the red or rose squares. You see that before, people were on the low side on average and tended to go down and drift down through the day without the kind of rhythmic change that healthy people do show. After just 6 weeks, the mean cortisol value came up, particularly in the morning, came down later in the day as it should, and came back up or started to come back up late at night, again as it should physiologically. So what we see here is that for the group as a mean, with their standard deviation, improvement, statistically significant, in just 6 weeks using PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard on a fixed schedule. These successful outcome results using PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard as an adaptogenic breakthrough, showing cortisol rhythm improvements, significant at the p less than 0.005 level, and using analysis of variance, a value of less than 0.001. So statistically significant, powerfully important results after just 6 weeks on PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard. Now, if we look at the before and after of the people who started with low cortisol, and here you see the blue line at time 0 and the rose, red, pink line at 6 weeks time 2, you see that the group with low cortisol were profoundly low in the morning, just barely above 4 nanograms per ml, and they slid down through the day with very little rhythm. After just 6 weeks, this low cortisol group was not quite up to the 7 level that we would like, but they were near 6, a significant improvement. They stayed in the healthier range in the later day and afternoon, and now we're higher in the evening as they recover. What we'll see over time is that the morning cortisol comes up and the afternoon shows better rhythm, and eventually the late cortisols don't need to start their early rise until dawn. This is for the group that had normal cortisols. Did they benefit from PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard and its trophorestorative support? Again, the time 0 is in dark blue, and the time 2 at 6 weeks is in the red. And here you see that the people with normal cortisol had improvement in their rhythm and improvement in their levels. So they went up a bit first in the morning, came down to a healthy afternoon nadir, and then were showing improvement by the early rise in the evening, and eventually they will damp that. Here's a case with high morning cortisol, and how was this one affected? Here's an individual who before had a high cortisol on rising, came to a very low cortisol by late morning, then bumped up in the afternoon, maybe with the help of some caffeinated beverages, and more or less crashed at night based on these values. After just 6 weeks, we see that the cortisol is higher first in the morning, but the rhythm is better, and when we follow this person over time, their cortisol will come down in the morning as their resilience and reserve is rebuilt. Here's another example of someone with a high cortisol in the morning, again the dark blue diamonds, and the after 6 weeks on PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard, the pink or red squares. And this case follows a more classic pattern, especially high in the morning. After just 6 weeks, rehabilitation comes down to 8, which is where they would ideally be. They come down later in the morning, come up in the afternoon, they're beginning to restore their rhythm. So whether you have low, usual, or high cortisol, there is benefit from PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard if there's any signs or symptoms of adrenal distress. And here we see, again for the group, the comparison before and after, improvement in first morning cortisol, better rhythm, better resilience, and better individual adrenal competence. Now, adrenal health has to do with the balance of stress hormones. Adrenal and insulin function do go together. Blood sugar levels and internal stress levels are intimately related. A decrease in cortisol levels will slow energy production. An increase in insulin levels will increase sugar demand. And the result is that healthy energy levels rise and illness hospitality decreases. So PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard reduces insulin resistance. It improves insulin resilience. It reduces insulin resistance. It improves functional insulin levels. It allows for better glucose utilization and demand by cells. And it is also associated with a lowering of cortisol stress hormone, further improving the energy equation. Here we see the link between adrenal health and insulin resistance. This again is the population that received PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard, but notice that they had better insulin function by 2 critical markers after just 6 weeks. There was a 28% improvement in HOMA, the Homeostatic Model Assessment Tool, and a 38% improvement by glucose-insulin ratio. Now the data here shows the glucose-insulin ratio on the left in the purple and the HOMA, the Homeostatic Model Assessment, in the right in the brown or burnt umber. Notice that the glucose-insulin ratio, where higher is better, improves. It improves from 3.89 before to 6.25 after, and the HOMA improves from 5.72 before to 4.1 after. Here's another example where the insulin resistance was improved after just 6 weeks on PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard. The glucose-insulin ratio on the left improves from 4.25 to 6.49, and the HOMA, the Homeostatic Model Assessment on the right, improves from 6.39 to 3.95. So in summary, adrenal health is intimately related to PERQUE support and PERQUE nutrients. We recommend PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard, 4 to 8 soft gels a day to start, and tapering as symptomatically supported or based on improvement in the salivary or plasma levels, cortisol and DHEA. PERQUE Potent C Guard based on C calibration. That is available through our client services or through the website, how to individually determine how much ascorbate antioxidant is needed. PERQUE Pain Guard Forte, 6 to 28 a day, or PERQUE Repair Guard, 3 to 14 a day, and PERQUE Mag Plus Guard and Choline Citrate, 1 to 5 doses, each dose being 2 soft gels and 1 teaspoon, and taking enough of the PERQUE Mag Plus Guard and Choline Citrate to bring the first morning urine pH into the 6.5 to 7.5 range. PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard is indeed trophorestorative. It's natural adrenal support. It's a breakthrough in that it does not in any way force or stimulate the adrenals, but rather supports and rehabilitates them to repair the HPA, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, to help with restorative sleep, and to rebuild immune tolerance and resilience. PERQUE Potency Guard is based on a calibration, buffered 100% reduced L-ascorbate as the mother antioxidant, including magnesium, potassium, zinc, and calcium in proper balance, with of course no hidden ingredients because all PERQUE products are full disclosure, and with safer approaches for people with food and chemical sensitivities. Here we see the results of reports from 3,496 people who did their ascorbate calibration. Healthy people calibrated on less than 4 grams. You see that in the yellow area to the far left. People who are almost healthy calibrated in the 5 to 10 gram range. That's the dark blue. The dark green are folks with some symptoms, and they calibrated between 10 and 130 grams. And then there was a 5% or so, 1 in 20 people, that needed more than 130 grams to calibrate. So the range of ascorbate needs is quite different, quite diverse. This is the approach that allows individualized determination of ascorbate vitamin C need. Polyphenolics are stimulants and better choices to stimulate repair. They're hypoallergenic, potent, safer, and effective, particularly quercetin dihydrate and OPC, as we have in our Pain Guard Forte and in our PERQUE Whey Guard Repair Meals, and also the addition of the freeze-dried pomegranate juice in Repair Guard, so that PERQUE Repair Guard on an ORAC basis, on an oxygen radical accepting capacity ORAC basis, is about 3 times the strength of a Pain Guard. The Pain Guard are small, Repair Guard slightly larger, but with 3 times the ORAC activity. And the PERQUE Whey Guard Repair is the first meal that contains these helpful polyphenolics uniquely from PERQUE. So Trophorestorative Repair, one of 3 or more different ways: PERQUE Pain Guard, PERQUE Repair Guard, and PERQUE Whey Guard Repair. Here we see the benefits of PERQUE Magnesium as PERQUE Mag Plus Guard and PERQUE Choline Citrate. This was a group of 4 people who for 4 weeks took magnesium only. Notice their ionized magnesium didn't change. Then over the next 4 weeks, their ionized magnesium improved when they took both PERQUE Mag Plus Guard and choline citrate. And then for the last 4 weeks, they were monitored. You see one person, the turquoise or blue, maintained their levels pretty well. The other 3 people showed decline, indicating continuing need for magnesium as PERQUE Mag Plus Guard and PERQUE Choline Citrate. So PERQUE Mag Plus Guard with PERQUE Choline Citrate facilitates uptake when magnesium uptake is otherwise blocked. This is a breakthrough unique to PERQUE and available to you and your clients to deal with metabolic acidosis and related problems. Now, PERQUE for metabolic syndrome we can summarize as follows. PERQUE Glucose Regulation Guard, 4 to 8 a day to keep blood sugar in a healthy range. PERQUE Adrenal Distress Guard, 2 to 4 a day as needed. Either PERQUE EPA DHA Guard to change people's oil, or PERQUE Triple EFA Guard, 4 per day. PERQUE Metabolipid Detox Plus, PERQUE MDP Guard, the carnitine, fumarate, and GABA product, 6 a day. PERQUE Whey Guard Repair, 1 to 2 scoops a day, with or without PERQUE Repair Guard or PERQUE Pain Guard Forte, as needed based on the C-reactive protein or signs and symptoms of inflammation and repair deficit. PERQUE Glucose Regulation Guard is about to improve. PERQUE Glucose Regulation Guard does enhance glucose transport activity and increase energy levels with the most active forms of French lilac, bitter melon, huckleberry bilberry, each known for reversing insulin resistance with a distinctive synergy and distinctive activity in the PERQUE ingredients. Chromium to enhance glucose tolerance activity, vanadium ascorbate for additional glucose regulation, and Agnus castus for better HPA hormonal regulation. And soon, PERQUE will be able to further improve upon this with PERQUE Glucose Control Guard Forte, that adds corosolic acid to the PERQUE Glucose Regulation Guard, and we're looking forward to bringing that back into the PERQUE family. PERQUE EPA DHA Guard to help people change their oil. PERQUE EPA 660 milligrams and DHA 500 milligrams in each 2 soft gel dose. This helps maintain a 0 level of oxidized HDL and LDL, distilled and nitrogen purged. That means the lipids are distilled to remove toxins, and they're distilled under nitrogen to prevent oxygen from damaging the delicate polyunsaturated fats. This is for purity and protection, so that you can restore the healthier PGF2 alpha and PGI prostaglandins or prostanoids to stimulate repair. And this is for both brain and body. We believe you need both EPA and DHA for both brain and body. These are the good fats. And 1 to 4 times a day, taking 2 of the soft gels until people have shifted from the omega-6 rich typical American state to an omega-3 balance is highly recommended. PERQUE Triple EFA Guard is designed for people who have changed their oil and want to maintain a healthier essential oil. It is clinically proven with EPA and DHA an omega-4 to 1 ratio. That is, the omega-3 to omega-6 is 4 to 1. 4 omega-3 to 1 omega-6 in Triple EFA Guard. This is because of the omega-6 superdominance in the American diet, and to bring it back into some balance. It includes omega-9 for membrane fluidity, conjugated linoleic acid, CLA, and it helps regulate cardiovascular, reproductive, immune, hormonal, and nerve functions. 2 soft gels taken 1 to 4 times a day for maintenance. PERQUE Metabolipid Detox Plus, PERQUE MDP Guard, is 100% L-carnitine fumarate for fat burning. Carnitine is the shovel that brings the fat fuel to the furnace of the cell. The carnitine fumarate is the most active and beneficial form, along with GABA, a soothing neurotransmitter that builds growth hormone for additional fat burning and lean muscle mass. MCT enhances carnitine and GABA uptake, alkalinizes cells, and improves fat metabolism and satiety, so you have the feeling of satisfaction from whatever you consume. A special form of kelp, a sea vegetable, is available for biological iodine to improve thyroid hormone production and function, and we recommend 2 of these soft gels 2 to 3 times daily to improve fat metabolism and to enhance energy production in the mitochondria. PERQUE Whey Guard Repair is for metabolic syndrome and for all of those who want to both repair and have a healthy meal. 15 grams of 100% full function, easy to digest native whey, all active whey all the time. Less than 10% of calories from fat, and yet a delicious mouthfeel. Less than 10, the lowest glycemic load, very little change in blood sugar over time. And 10 plus grams of fiber for digestive ease and glycemic cholesterol control. For more information, see www.perquewayguard.com and www.perquewayguardrepair.com, specialized websites on these breakthrough meals by PERQUE. Here you see the data comparing PERQUE Whey Guard with the standard 50-gram bread and jam challenge. You see in the blue lines the change in blood sugar, the mean and standard deviation for the group after the 50 grams of carbohydrates from standard bread and jam. Notice that the line below, the red line, barely changes. Notice also on the far left that both groups started about the same blood sugar level at 15 minutes. They're still about the same, but at 30 minutes, the group that has the standard bread and jam has a mean blood sugar of 130, whereas the group on PERQUE Whey Guard or Whey Guard Repair has a blood sugar of only 102. At 45 minutes, the difference is even more dramatic. Blood sugar further increases in the bread and jam group to 137 milligrams per deciliter, comes back down to baseline 94 milligrams per deciliter in the PERQUE Whey Guard group. At 60 minutes, blood sugar is beginning to come down, but still 125 in the bread and jam group, 91 in the PERQUE Whey Guard group, and at 90 minutes they're coming back together, and at 2 hours they're similar. But this low glycemic load says constant blood sugar, so constant mood and concentration. the feeling of fullness because of the fiber uniquely packed into PERQUE Whey Guard and PERQUE Whey Guard Repair. So we highly recommend this to give satisfaction from healthy calories, better digestion, and better metabolism. So the innate immune system has to do with protection, recycling, defending, and repairing. It has an interdependent aspect that have to do with our health habits, our balance of rest and activity, stretching and breathing, our mindfulness, active meditative practice, our movements, particularly Traeger, Pilates, and similar, and as one measure of our overall metabolism, the first morning urine pH after rest. Healthy people have a 6.5 to 7.5 first AM urine pH. Below that is metabolic acidosis at the cellular level, net acid excess until proven otherwise, and above that, catabolic illness that tears people down. More information about this is available in our monograph, The Joy of Food, the Alkaline Whey. It's available digitally online and physically in bulk through PERQUE Client Services, and you can reach PERQUE Client Services at 1-800-525-7372. The Alkaline Whey brings balance together, some kind of movement such as Pilates, a balance of aerobic exercises or Traeger technique, Feldenkrais, relaxation and meditation in an active form. All of this is the natural product of functioning and feeling well, and PERQUE Integrative Health, your solutions health company, is privileged to bring this information to you in accessible forms.